Welcome to a chilling journey through the shadows of the unknown, where the line between reality and nightmare blurs in the most terrifying ways. I'm your guide into the abyss, and tonight, we're diving into 14 spine-tingling stories that will make your heart race and your skin crawl. Imagine being alone on a desolate Brazilian beach, a monstrous figure lurking in the moonlight, or hiking through a Spanish valley where the air itself whispers dread. Picture a quiet night shattered by whispers in your home, or the eerie feeling of being watched as mysterious cars follow your every move. From haunted shacks in the woods to shadowy figures in parking lots, these tales are rooted in real experiences. Each one a brush with the unexplainable, each one a test of survival. So grab a blanket, dim the lights, and brace yourself, because once we start, there's no turning back. Are you ready to face the darkness with me? Let's step into the first story, a tale of terror that will leave you questioning what's real and what's waiting just out of sight. The summer sun blazed over South Louisiana, casting golden ripples on the river, where 4 high school juniors, Jake, Ethan, Caleb, and Ryan, paddled their canoe. At 17, they craved adventure, their spirits wild and untamed. This happened about 20 years ago when I was a junior in high school in southern Louisiana. A few friends and I would go out canoeing on the weekends. One of our friends lived right next to a local river, and we would park a car at a landing several miles downstream, then drive back to his house and canoe back down. On this day, there were 4 of us, all males, 16 to 17 years old. Caleb, the storyteller of the group, leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Before we got into the river, our friend whose property was on the river remarked about a weird place he and another friend had seen on a prior trip. A cold compound set back from the river a few yards in the woods. The idea of hunting down this mysterious cult outpost ignited their imagination, like they were chasing a ghost story come to life. The river wound through thick forests, the air alive with birdsong and the rhythmic splash of paddles. Jake, ever the daredevil, grinned. "If we find this cult, I'm asking for a tour." Laughter echoed, but Ethan, the cautious one, scanned the banks warily. They stopped to swim, ate sandwiches on a sandy shore, and reveled in their freedom. But as noon approached, the air grew oppressive, the forest's whispers growing louder. Caleb suddenly pointed to a dirt trail snaking into the woods. "That's the path. It leads to the compound." They beached the canoe, hearts racing with anticipation. But as they stepped onto the trail, a swarm of horseflies descended like a biblical plague, their bites searing. We began to get attacked by a swarm of horseflies, the most I'd ever encountered. We decided to cancel our little trip down the road and ran back as quickly as we could to the canoes. Gasping, they collapsed by the river, clothes shredded, skin burning. "That was no accident," Ethan muttered, but Jake laughed it off. "Just nature's way of saying, try harder." They resumed paddling, the forest now looming darker, the trees crowding out the sun. Caleb jolted upright, pointing ahead. Our friend sees the handmade dock he mentioned earlier, a ramshackle structure on the river in front of the compound. The dock was a rotting mess, planks sagging under moss, ropes fraying like spider webs. A chill settled over them, the thrill turning to dread. "Maybe it's just a fisherman's setup," Jake said, his voice unsteady. They tied the canoe and crept ashore, the air thick with the stench of decay. The forest was silent, as if watching. Through the trees, a clearing emerged. In the inner clearing was a 2-story shack built from an assortment of lumber, tarps, and billboards, surrounded by a moat dug around it. It looked like a madman's fortress, not a home. Ethan grabbed Ryan's arm, whispering, We shouldn't be here. Before they could retreat, a shadow moved in the trees, eyes glinting with predatory intent, locking onto them. The shadow stepped into the clearing, a gaunt figure radiating menace. He looked a lot like Charles Manson with his unkempt brown hair and woolly beard, wearing khaki shorts and an Abita beer t-shirt. He had something shiny and metallic in his hand that I thought was a knife. Jake's throat tightened, but sunlight glinted off the object, revealing a rusted revolver. "Turn around," the man snarled, his voice raw and jagged. The boys froze, pulses hammering. "I said turn," he roared. But as they edged toward the canoe, a gunshot split the air, the bullet tearing into a bush. He said to us, "Turn around." I thought that was a wonderful idea, so we turned around to walk back to the canoes. He then said, "Not that way," and fired a shot into some bushes next to him. Obviously, what he had in his hand was not a knife, but a pistol. He led us to a clearing and sat us down in the dirt. A horrifying sight greeted them. I looked above us and noticed we were sitting under a log that was being suspended by ropes and pulleys. The massive log swayed, creaking like a guillotine waiting to drop. Kneeling in the dirt, the boys struggled to breathe. The man paced, ranting wildly. He starts to rant and rave about all the people that he apparently shot before, who had tried to steal from him. He said that he's also had his dogs attack people before, and proceeded to tell dogs that we couldn't see or hear to shut up and stop barking. No barks answered, only the moat's putrid stench filling the air. Ethan whispered to Ryan, "He's lost it. If he shoots, we bolt." Jake, desperate to diffuse the tension, asked, "You serve in the military?" The man stopped, eyes alight with mania. He tells us that he fought in Vietnam, and often the Vietnamese would sneak up and attack in groups of 3 and 4, just like we were doing. He said his shack was actually built by the Navy and transported down the river to his location. His story unraveled. Navies don't build shacks, and his trembling voice betrayed the lie. Caleb's regret deepened, his eyes fixed on the log, imagining it crushing them. The man suddenly tossed a plank and a pen at their feet. He tells us that he needs our information so that he can call the police. He handed us a small piece of lumber and told us to write our names and addresses on it. Jake, Ethan, and Ryan scrawled fake details, but Caleb, shaking, wrote his real name and address. The man snatched the plank, grinning like a wolf. "Now I know you," he hissed, his gaze piercing. But then his demeanor shifted. He pocketed the gun, chuckling. "You ain't here to rob me, are you? No buckets?" The boy stared, bewildered. Was this a sick game? As he laughed, the forest seemed to pulse, the moat stench growing sharper, like death itself was watching. Ethan's gut twisted. Something darker than madness lurked here. Something that wanted them to stay. The man's laughter faded, his eyes glinting with a strange warmth. He says that he could tell that we weren't there to rob him because we don't have any buckets. He tells us that his parents always welcomed guests here, and he was now happy to do the same. His voice turned sickly sweet, like poisoned honey. He proceeded to tell us to stand up and walked us back to our canoes. He tells us that we're always welcome to come back, and if we need a name to call this place, we should call it Skull Island, because his parents and the bones of several dogs were buried here. Jake forced a nod, but his mind screamed images of graves hidden beneath the dirt. Our same friend who wrote his real name and address says, "I'm never coming back here." We elbowed him and whispered for him to shut up. They trudged past the moat, its stench now a choking fog, as if the earth itself was rotting. We just waved goodbye to our host and got the heck out of Dodge. The man trailed them, whistling a chilling tune, his hand hovering near his pocketed gun. Ethan glanced back, half expecting a bullet. Every snapping twig felt like a countdown. "Don't stop," Jake hissed, leading them to the dock. At the canoe, the man waved cheerfully. "We're always welcome to come back," he called. The boys scrambled aboard, paddles churning frantically. We paddled in silence the whole way back, worried that he was following us in the woods with a rifle ready to switch back to menacing mode and decide to take us out. The river stretched endlessly, the forest's gaze heavy on their backs. Ethan clutched the paddle, imagining the man's laugh echoing from the trees. As the sun dipped, painting the water blood red, they spotted the landing where Ryan's car waited. We made it back to the landing and were able to drive off in peace after the four of us had an epic group hug. Tears streamed down Caleb's face as he sobbed, "I'm sorry I brought us here." Jake gripped his shoulder. "We're alive. That's what matters." They sped away, the forest shrinking in the rear view, but the weight of Skull Island clung to them. That night at Ryan's house, they huddled around the kitchen table, hands shaking around coffee mugs. Ethan broke the silence. "I dug into that area online. Locals talk about a hermit by the river linked to disappearances. Cops never pinned him down." The group's eyes widened. "And there's chatter about a 1970s cult on that land," Ethan added, voice low. "They held rituals, buried their dead there, called it Skull Island." Jake's blood ran cold. "Caleb, your real address?" Caleb nodded, trembling. "I messed up." The room grew heavy, the air buzzing with unseen eyes. Ryan whispered, "I saw something in the moat. Bones, maybe human." The others stared, horrified. Had they escaped a madman or something far worse? As they sat, a faint whistle echoed outside, like the man's tune. The lights flickered, and Caleb's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He didn't answer, but they all knew. Skull Island wasn't done with them. The days following their brush with Skull Island were a blur of fear. Jake lay awake, every creak conjuring the man's twisted grin. Ethan scoured the internet, chasing whispers of the river's secrets. Caleb, haunted by his real address, got calls from unknown numbers, silent except for rasping breaths. Ryan tried to stay upbeat, but even he jumped at shadows. Looking back as I got older, I genuinely feel bad for the man. He most likely had some mental health issues and was living in a place where he just wanted to be left alone. But the terror they'd felt was too raw to dismiss. One night, Ethan called them to his place, laptop glowing. "Check this out," he said, pulling up a 1978 article. 3 campers vanished near the river, their canoe found by a crumbling dock. "That's our spot," he said, voice shaking. "And there's more. Rumors of a cult called the Watchers on that land. They performed blood sacrifices, buried victims under the moat." Jake's stomach churned. "You're saying that guy was one of them?" Ethan nodded. "Or something worse." Caleb broke down. "My address is, what if he comes for me?" Ryan hugged him. "He doesn't know our fakes. You're good." But doubt gnawed at them. Ethan scrolled to a Reddit thread from last year. A hiker saw glowing orbs in the woods near the dock, heard chants and fled. "It's still active," Ethan whispered. The room felt smaller, the air thick with unseen eyes. Desperate for closure, Jake convinced Ryan to return to the river at midnight, armed with flashlights and a knife. The forest was a black void, the air icy despite the summer heat. The shack loomed, its walls pulsing like a living thing. The moat stench was unbearable, and in the mud, a silver ring glinted engraved with "Forever Bound." Jake reached for it, but a metallic scrape erupted from the shack. "Go!" he hissed, and they sprinted to the canoe. As they paddled away, a guttural laugh echoed, the same one from that day. Jake's flashlight caught something in the water, pale shapes like bones floating beneath the surface. "Tell me you saw that," Ryan gasped. Jake nodded, heart pounding. Back home, they swore to keep it secret, but the ring burned in Jake's pocket, whispering of past victims. Was the man a killer or a pawn in something older, hungrier? That night, Jake dreamed of the moat, hands clawing from the mud, chanting his name. He woke screaming, the ring now on his finger, though he'd left it in his drawer. Ethan's research uncovered a chilling detail. The Watchers worshipped a river entity that marked its prey, never letting them go. Caleb's calls grew frequent, each one longer, the breathing now a low growl. Ryan found scratches on his door, forming the word skull. They were trapped, bound to an island that refused to release them. Skull Island's grip tightened. Jake's nightmares grew vivid, graves splitting open, the man's laugh blending with chants. Ethan's research revealed the Watchers revered a river demon, the Eternal, demanding sacrifices to seal its pact. Caleb, now in Baton Rouge, saw the man's silhouette outside his window, grinning. Ryan found more scratches on his eye, yours now spelling island. The lesson is this: never trespass on people's lands in the woods, especially if you already know the place is supposed to be creepy. One morning, Ethan received an unmarked package, a plank with his fake name and address, a note reading, "Skull Island sees you." He gathered the group at a diner, voice trembling. He knows we lied. Caleb, on video call, looked haunted. "He's here, in Baton Rouge. Last night he tapped my window." Jake slammed the table. "We call the cops." Ethan shook his head. "No proof. He's a ghost." Ryan quiet whispered, "Or not human." Jake decided to end it. He drove to the dock alone, carrying gasoline and matches. The shack waited, door open like a maw. Inside, walls were scrawled with runes, a ledger listing visitors, their names on the last page. A voice laughed. "Fire can't touch me." Jake poured gasoline, but when he lit the match, green flames erupted, floating without burning. The man appeared in the fire, unscathed. "Skull Island is forever," he said, vanishing. Jake fled to his car, but in the rearview mirror, the man sat in the back seat, smiling. Jake screamed, crashing into a tree. He woke in a hospital, unharmed, the ledger in his pocket. The final page now read, "All are bound." The ring was back on his finger, unremovable. Ethan's calls stopped. His laptop was found by the river, displaying a photo of the shack, runes glowing. Caleb vanished from Baton Rouge, his room scratched with skull. Ryan's house burned down, the word island carved in the ashes. Jake lives alone now, checking locks obsessively. Every night, he hears the man's whistle outside. The ring pulses, warm against his skin. Sometimes he sees the moat in his dreams, faces staring up, chanting his name. The ledger sits in a drawer, its pages filling with new names, strangers he's never met. He knows the truth. Skull Island isn't a place. It's a curse, a hungry entity that marked them that. And it's coming for him, for them all, because no one escapes the Eternal. Imagine a sleepy Scottish countryside town, where the air smells of damp grass, and the only sounds are the distant bleats of sheep. It's 2003, and two 10-year-old boys, Jamie and Finn, are trudging through the golden light of a late summer afternoon, their football boots slung over their shoulders. They're headed to practice, cutting through a shortcut that locals know well. A sprawling grassy field that dips into a quiet valley. At the edge of this field lies the town's old tennis courts, tucked beside a sloped stretch of earth that locals call the Stand, a grassy ridge shaped like an elongated pyramid. perfect for spectators to watch matches. But today, the courts are empty, the nets sagging under years of neglect. A narrow path winds down from the field, flanked by wildflowers, leading straight to the courts. Beyond them, a small cluster of trees looms, their branches tangled like skeletal fingers against the sky. The boys chatter about their favorite players, oblivious to the eerie stillness creeping into the air, a stillness that feels like the world is holding its breath. Little do they know, this shortcut is about to become a memory that will haunt them for years. As Jamie and Finn descend the narrow path, the world seems to dim, the sunlight swallowed by an unnatural chill. The wooded area briefly falls out of view as the path dips slightly, and when they crest the stand, there she is. A woman standing at the tree line, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, staring directly at them. Her skin is an ashen gray like storm clouds trapped in human form, and her clothes, a long, tattered dress, blend into her colorless silhouette. She doesn't move, not even a twitch, yet she's undeniably three-dimensional, not a shadow or a trick of the light. Her eyes, hollow and unblinking, lock onto the boys, freezing them mid-step. Finn whispers, "Is she real?" Jamie's heart pounds, his instincts screaming to run, but his legs feel like lead. They edge closer, now just 10 meters away, her gaze never wavering. The air grows heavy, thick with an unspoken warning. Suddenly, they turn to skirt the court, their backs to her for a fleeting moment. Jamie glances at Finn, his friend's face pale as bone. "We gotta go," Jamie mutters, and they bolt, their sneakers pounding the dirt. When they dare to look back, she's gone, vanished in the blink of an eye, as if the earth swallowed her whole. The trees stand silent, but the boys feel her eyes still burning into their backs, a presence that lingers like a predator watching from the shadows. The boys don't stop running until they reach the safety of the football field, their breaths ragged, their minds reeling. They haven't said a word, but a single glance between them speaks volumes. Pure, primal fear. Jamie's mind races. Was she real? A ghost? Finn, usually the skeptic, is trembling, his eyes wide with unspoken terror. At first, they convince themselves it wasn't a ghost, just a strange woman, maybe a local playing a prank. But the more they think, the less it makes sense. The area is hemmed in by fences and a waist-high stream. No one could have slipped away that fast, not in 5 seconds. That night, Jamie lies awake, the woman's hollow eyes burned into his memory. For years, that stretch of woods terrifies him at night. He hugs the fence, sprinting past the spot where she stood, heart pounding, as if she's still watching. Finn, too, avoids the courts after dusk, their childhood shortcut now a forbidden zone. A decade later, Jamie bumps into Finn in town. Over a pint, they revisit that day. "You remember her?" Jamie asks. Finn nods, his voice low. "Mate, I still see her in my dreams." The truth hangs heavy. Whatever they saw wasn't human, and it wanted them to know it was there. In their tiny village, where everyone knows everyone, the woman is a ghost story without a source. No one has ever seen her before or since, and in a place this small, that's impossible, unless she wasn't human. Jamie, now a grown man, wrestles with his skepticism. He tells people he doesn't believe in ghosts, but this story is his one exception, a crack in his rational armor. The memory gnaws at him, a puzzle with no solution. Was she a lost soul tied to the woods? A warning? Or something darker, stalking the edges of their world? 4 years ago, he runs into Finn in town. After greetings, Jamie blurts, "You remember when we saw that ghost?" Finn's face darkens. "Yeah, mate, I do." They don't linger on it, but the shared glance says it all. They both know they dodged something unspeakable. Whispers in the village hint at older tales. Children vanishing near the courts decades ago, never found. Jamie can't shake the feeling that the woman wasn't just watching them. She was choosing them. And maybe, just maybe, she's still waiting in those woods, her gray silhouette melting into the earth, ready for the next curious soul to cross her path. The fog coiled around the pines like a living thing, swallowing the dirt road that led to a cursed patch of land in Spokane, Washington. Ellie Harper's Jeep shuddered over the uneven path, her phone's GPS glitching, unable to map the forest. Head, a freelance journalist scraping by in a dying industry. Ellie hunted stories that sparked online firestorms. This one had erupted on X overnight. A hiker's thread, blurry photos of twisted trees and a cryptic warning about eerie whispers in the woods, had exploded with thousands of retweets before the guy vanished. Comments ranged from obvious hoax to claims the land was haunted by mysterious deaths tied to its toxic history. Ellie didn't buy paranormal nonsense, but a viral scoop could revive her career. The road ended at a rusted gate, its no trespassing sign choked by moss. Beyond, the forest loomed, silent and oppressive. Ellie grabbed her recorder, slung her backpack on, and stepped into the cold. The air tasted metallic, like blood, and the ground crunched with strange, brittle debris. This land was poisoned. Locals swore not just by chemical runoff, but by something ancient, something wrong. Her boots sank into the muck, each step heavier than the last. Her phone buzzed. Her editor. That place eats people. Be careful. Ellie rolled her eyes, but couldn't shake the unease. She dug into the land's past. A factory in the 70s had dumped experimental waste here, leaving the soil dead. Families nearby fell ill. Some vanished. Recent posts on X mentioned paranormal events, lights flickering in the trees, shadows that moved without a source, and those haunting voices calling from the dark. Collective delusion, Ellie told herself. But the forest's silence felt like it was holding its breath. A faint hum vibrated through her, not sound but a pulse in her bones. She froze, scanning the trees, nothing but gnarled branches twisting into grotesque shapes. Then a snap, a twig breaking. Ellie spun, her flashlight cutting through the fog. "Who's there?" Her voice echoed unanswered. Another snap, closer. Her heart raced. The hum grew, now a rhythmic throb, and the air thickened, pressing against her chest. This wasn't just a story. It was a warning. Ellie's flashlight flickered, its beam stuttering across the forest floor. She steadied her breath, telling herself it was just a deer, but the air grew heavier, like a hand on her throat. The hum sharpened, vibrating through her teeth, and the tainted soil seemed to pulse beneath her boots. Another snap, then silence. Too perfect, too wrong. She pushed deeper, her journalist instincts battling the urge to run. The fog parted, revealing a clearing where a crumbled foundation lay like a skeleton. Shattered glass glinted in the dirt, and a child's tricycle sat half-buried, its red paint peeling like flayed skin. Ellie crouched, her fingers brushing a leather-bound journal in the debris. Her pulse quickened. She opened it, her flashlight catching spidery handwriting. "The Watcher sees all. It knows your fears. Don't trust the voices in the forest." A shiver ran through her. The journal belonged to Clara, a woman who'd lived here in the 80s. Her entries described strange events, stars blinking out, animals rotting overnight, and whispers that knew her secrets. Clara wrote of the Watcher, a shadow with ember-like eyes that haunted the tree line. The final entry chilled Ellie. It's inside now. Clara had vanished, one of the mysterious deaths tied to this land. Ellie tucked the journal away, her hands trembling. The hum became a chorus of disembodied voices, faint but clear, chanting in a tongue she couldn't grasp. They slithered through the trees, closing in like a noose. Her skepticism shattered. This wasn't a story for clicks, it was real. Her flashlight died, plunging her into darkness. Panic clawed at her chest. Then a pale glow flickered ahead, pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't hers. The light moved, deliberate, beckoning her deeper. Ellie's mind screamed to flee, but her feet followed, drawn by the glow's hypnotic pull. The voices sharpened, now hissing her name. Ellie. Ellie. The glow stopped at a gnarled oak, its roots twisting like veins. At its base, a circle of stones formed a ritualistic pattern. Inside, a silver locket gleamed, engraved with CM. Clara's? Ellie reached for it, but the ground quaked, and the voices roared, a scream that drove her to her knees. The wail faded, leaving Ellie gasping on the forest floor. The locket lay inches from her hand, its silver surface warm despite the cold. She grabbed it, her fingers trembling as she pried it open. Inside was a faded photo of a woman, Clara maybe, her eyes wide with terror. The voices returned, softer now, urging her to look closer. Ellie's gaze fell on the stones. They weren't random, they formed a symbol, etched into the earth, like a sigil. Her stomach churned. This wasn't just a haunted land, it was a prison. She scrambled to her feet, the locket clutched tightly. The glow reappeared, brighter, guiding her deeper into the forest. The trees seemed to lean inward, their branches clawing at the sky. The hum was deafening now, a pulse that matched her racing heartbeat. Ellie's mind raced. The journal mentioned the Watcher. But what was it? A ghost? A demon? Or something tied to the chemical corruption that had poisoned this place? She remembered a detail from her research. The factory's waste wasn't just toxic. It had been experimental, laced with compounds no one fully understood. The glow led her to a sunken pit, its edges blackened as if scorched. At its center stood a figure, tall and impossibly thin, its silhouette shimmering like heat waves. The Watcher. Its eyes burned red, and its voice, the Maquai whispers, slithered into her mind. You were always meant to come here. Ellie's legs buckled. The locket grew scalding, searing her palm, but she couldn't let go. Images flooded her mind. Clara screaming, workers dumping barrels into the earth, and a ritual. A desperate attempt to contain whatever the chemicals had awakened. Ellie's vision cleared. The Watcher stepped closer, its form flickering between human and something else, something ancient. She realized the truth. The land wasn't just contaminated, it was a gateway. The chemicals had torn a hole in reality, letting the Watcher seep through. Clara had tried to seal it, but she'd failed, becoming one of the unexplained casualties. And now Ellie was next, unless she finished what Clara started. She remembered the journal's warning, don't listen. But the voices were relentless, promising answers, power, even salvation. Ellie's eyes darted to the sigil. It was incomplete, missing a final stone. She searched the pit, finding a jagged rock stained with something dark. Blood? With no time to think, she placed it, completing the circle. The ground roared, and the Watcher lunged, its scream shaking the trees. Ellie held the locket aloft, its light blinding. The sigil glowed and the pit collapsed, swallowing the Watcher in a vortex of shadow and flame. The vortex's roar faded, leaving an eerie stillness. Ellie stumbled back, her hand throbbing where the locket had burned her. Skin. The pit was now a smoldering crater, its edges pulsing with faint, unnatural light. She clutched the journal and locket, her breath ragged. Had she destroyed the Watcher or merely trapped it? The cursed land of Spokane seemed to hold its breath, watching her. The air still carried that metallic tang, a reminder of the toxic land's history that had birthed this nightmare. Ellie's legs trembled, but she forced herself to move, the forest's oppressive silence urging her to flee. As she ran, the trees seemed to shift, their branches twisting into claw-like shapes that snagged her jacket. The voices returned, faint but insistent, whispering her name. Ellie, you can't leave. Her heart pounded. The locket grew warm again, its heat pulsing in time with her steps. She tripped over a root, sprawling into the tainted soil, and for a moment she swore the ground breathed beneath her. Scrambling up, she saw the glow again. Not the Watchers, but something new. A soft blue light emanating from the locket. It projected a fleeting image. Clara, standing in this very forest, chanting words Ellie couldn't hear. The vision faded, but it left a certainty. Clara's ritual had been incomplete, and Ellie's actions had only delayed the inevitable. She reached her jeep, fumbling with the keys. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. As she sped away, the forest shrank in her rearview mirror, but the faint whispers lingered in her mind, promising the Watcher's return. Ellie's hands shook on the wheel. She'd come for a story, but found a legacy, one she couldn't escape. The locket, now cool, sat heavy in her pocket, a tether to the haunted land she'd barely survived. Back in her Spokane apartment, Ellie sat at her desk, the journal open before her. The locket rested beside it, its silver glinting under the lamp. Her hands still shook as she read Clara's final entries, each word a revelation. Clara was her mother's cousin, a family secret buried under decades of silence. Ellie's mother had fled this town as a teen, never mentioning Clara or the cursed land of Spokane. The locket's photo confirmed it, Clara's face eerily similar to Ellie's own. Was this why the Watcher knew her name? Had she been drawn here by blood, not chance? Ellie wrote her article, framing it as an expose on the toxic land's history and its tragic deaths. She omitted the Watcher, the voices, the ritual, too wild for print. The story went viral, trending on X with hashtags like Spokane Secrets. Environmental groups called for a federal cleanup, citing the chemical corruption that had scarred the land. But at night, alone, Ellie heard Ma Kwai whispers in her dreams, the Watcher's voice vowing to return. She locked the locket in a drawer, but its warmth seeped through, a constant reminder of the haunted land. One night, her phone lit up with a new X post. A hiker's video, shaky footage of a glowing figure in the Spokane woods, right where the pit had collapsed. The comments exploded. Some called it a ghost, others a government cover-up. Ellie's blood ran cold. She'd sealed the gateway, hadn't she? Or had she merely angered the Watcher, inviting a worse fate? She grabbed her keys, the locket's heat flaring in her pocket. The story wasn't over. Not for her. Not for the cursed land. She'd return, whether to fight or to face her destiny. The wind howled outside Sophie Miller's bedroom window, rattling the old farmhouse on a lonely Oregon road, 15 miles from Portland's lights. At 10, Sophie was used to the silence of their semi-rural haven, where houses stood far apart, the nearest neighbor a 10-minute trek through the hills. Her desk lamp flickered as she sketched superheroes in her notebook, the only sound her pencils scratch. But a low rumble broke the quiet. A truck's engine, idling close. She crept to the window, heart thudding. A gray pickup sat at the end of their gravel driveway, its headlights cutting through the spring dusk, unblinking and cold. I grew up about 15 miles outside of downtown Portland, in a semi-rural area. We lived on a windy country road in the hills where the homes were spread, quite a distance apart. Our closest neighbor was maybe a 10-minute walk away, I would guess, but our house was set back off the road and had a gravel driveway that had a sharp turn so you couldn't see the house from the road and vice versa. One spring day when I was 10, I was riding the bus home from school. As the bus squeaked to a stop at my driveway, I looked out the window to my left and saw a man in a gray pickup idling aside the road, parked perpendicular to my driveway, almost blocking it. Sophie squinted, her breath fogging the glass. The driver's face was hidden under a worn cap, his posture rigid. Being so young, I thought nothing of it, but when I got to the front of the bus, the driver held her arm out, blocking me from going any further. "Do you recognize that truck or that man?" I told her no. Ms. Hawkins, the bus driver, fixed her gaze on the truck, her usual smile gone. She slid open her window, signaling the man to leave. He stared back, motionless, his eyes glinting, under the cap's shadow. At that point, she opened her sliding window and motioned for him to move along. He looked at her, then looked back ahead and didn't move. Ms. Hawkins leaned into the intercom, her voice sharp. The bus driver then got on the intercom and told him that he needs to move along, but he needed to stay there. Then she said, "So you best move along. I'm not going anywhere until you're out of here." The man's head tilted, as if sizing her up. Then the truck roared, tires kicking up gravel as he sped off. Finally he left, and after a few minutes the bus driver let me out and said that she would wait several minutes for me to get up the driveway to go home. Sophie ran up the path, her sneakers crunching, Ms. Hawkins's headlights a lifeline until she reached the door. Inside, Sophie's voice trembled as she spilled everything. To her mom, Laura. I told my mom what happened as soon as I got home. Laura's eyes widened, pulling Sophie into a tight embrace. The next morning, she came with me to catch the bus and to thank the bus driver. Laura met Ms. Hawkins at the stop, her gratitude fierce, promising a homemade pie later. By afternoon, Laura and Sophie's stepdad, Greg, were outside, axes swinging, clearing a thicket of pines at the driveway's end. After that incident, my mom and stepdad hollowed out a section of the trees at the end of the driveway as a hiding spot so my siblings and I could watch the road while waiting for the bus in the mornings where nobody could see us. The new nook let Sophie, her brother Max, and sister Lily hide while watching for the bus, invisible to passers-by. But the memory gnawed at Sophie. This incident, though, gives me chills when I think about it. If my bus driver hadn't been so vigilant in looking out for me, and if that man in the pickup had been up to no good, I would have absolutely been a goner. She couldn't erase the man's stare, a predator's focus that haunted her. That night, under her pillow, she found a folded note in red ink, "You're mine, Sophie." Her scream pierced the house, but no one had entered her room. Laura and Greg searched, finding nothing, their faces pale. Neighbors soon whispered of a gray pickup prowling nearby roads, always at twilight, its driver a silent shadow. Sophie's, sleep fractured, dreams filled with the truck's rumble and a faceless figure with glowing red eyes, whispering her name. The nightmares grew worse. One night, Sophie woke to scratching at her window, the glass etched with the word "mine." She stopped sleeping in her room, camping on the living room couch. Greg installed cameras, but they caught only static when the truck appeared on distant roads. A local librarian, Mrs. Tate, shared a chilling tale. Decades ago, A drifter in a gray truck stalked children in these hills, vanishing after a girl went missing. Some said he wasn't human, a wraith bound to the roads, feeding on fear. Sophie's notes multiplied, each in red ink appearing in her backpack, her shoes even sealed in her lunchbox. I'm closer. Max and Lily saw the truck too, its headlights flickering like eyes in their dreams. One evening, Sophie's radio hissed, a voice breaking through static. "Sophie, I'm here," Shay yanked. The plug, heart pounding, but the voice lingered, echoing in her skull. Greg found tire tracks near the driveway, too wide for any local vehicle, smeared with a red, oily substance that reeked of decay. The family planned to move, but Sophie knew running was futile. In her final dream, the faceless man stood in her room, his cap dripping red, whispering, "You can't hide." The truck's growl filled the house, and Sophie woke to silence. Her family gone, the note on her pillow, now blank but the air heavy with his presence. She was alone, and he was still watching. The glow of a laptop screen lights up a Brooklyn apartment as Chloe, a 29-year-old freelance writer, scrolls through Airbnb listings for a weekend escape. It's late September, and the city's chaos has worn her thin. She lands on a listing that feels like a steal, a 19th century farmhouse in the Catskills, its photos showing peeling paint and antique charm. "Perfect," she whispers, booking it with her fiancé, Nathan. When they arrive, the house looms under a canopy of gnarled oaks, its windows dark like unblinking eyes. Inside, the air is thick, carrying a musty weight that clings to their skin. 4 weeks ago, Chloe stood in the basement of that farmhouse, a damp, cavernous space where the ceiling sagged with crude patches of hay. The floorboards groaned underfoot, and a faint drip echoed from somewhere unseen. An overwhelming scent of rotting flesh hit her, so vile she gagged, tearing through dusty shelves for a dead animal. Nathan, upstairs unpacking, frowned when she bolted up, pale and trembling. No one else could smell it, which was weird, she told him, her voice shaking. The basement's single bulb flickered, casting shadows that seemed to curl toward her, whispering secrets she couldn't hear. Chloe insisted they couldn't stay, and they left, never spending the night. Driving away, Chloe glanced back, her breath catching. A curtain in an upstairs window twitched, as if someone had stepped away just in time. Nathan saw nothing, but Chloe knew. That house wasn't empty. It was watching them, and it wasn't done with her yet. 3 weeks later, Chloe is at Nathan's parents' house in Long Island. A warm, cluttered home filled with the scent of roasted garlic and the chatter of family. Nathan's 7-year-old niece Ava is curled up on Chloe's lap, her tiny fingers tracing a storybook. The room hums with normalcy. Nathan's mom chopping vegetables, his dad flipping through a newspaper. Then it hits her again. That same putrid smell of rotting flesh, so intense Chloe nearly drops Ava. Her stomach churns as she buries her nose in Ava's hair, expecting a source. Nothing. Ava's clean, her clothes fresh, and no one else in the room notices a thing. Chloe's pulse spikes, her eyes scanning the room for that farmhouse's shadow. "You okay, sweetheart?" Nathan's mom asks, noticing her pallor. Chloe nods, forcing a smile, but the smell coils around her like a living thing, heavy with malice. She excuses herself, stepping outside to gulp fresh air, but the odor follows, faint now, teasing her senses. Back inside, Ava stares at her, unblinking, as if she knows something Chloe doesn't. That night, Chloe dreams of the farmhouse basement. Its walls pulse like flesh, and a voice, low and guttural, whispers her name from the dark. She wakes gasping. Nathan's arm around her, but the air feels wrong, as if the dream has bled into reality. The smell is gone, but Chloe can't shake the feeling that something crossed over with her from that cursed house. And it's closer than ever. Back in Brooklyn, Chloe tries to reclaim normalcy, burying herself in deadlines and coffee runs. Her apartment, once a sanctuary, now feels like a stage for something unseen. Twice in the past week, alone at home, that rotting smell surges without warning, fleeting like a phantom brushing past her. The first time she's cooking dinner, and the stench drowns out the sizzling garlic, making her gag. She rips through cabinets, checks under sinks, even lifts floorboards. Nothing is rotting. Nothing explains it. The second time, it hits at midnight, waking her from a shallow sleep. The air grows cold, the lights dim, but no source is found. Each time her apartment feels smaller, the walls pressing in as if trapping her with the odor. Chloe buys air purifiers, sage, anything to banish it. But the smell laughs at her efforts, returning when she least expects. She notices other oddities. Her keys vanish only to reappear on the counter. Her laptop plays static when no tabs are open. One evening, staring at her reflection in a window, she swears another face flickers behind hers, pale, eyeless, gone in a blink. Chloe tells herself it's stress, but deep down she knows. Whatever latched onto her in that farmhouse is here, in her home, and it's growing bolder. It's a stormy night, rain lashing Chloe's windows as she and Nathan curl up with a movie. Nathan, always tinkering, is polishing an antique candlestick holder, a heavy, tarnished thing etched with swirling runes that seem to shift in the candlelight. It's one of many relics his father took from a show house he won 3 weeks ago. A cold, opulent mansion now stripped bare. Nathan hums, then tries a playful whistle. Chloe laughs, nudging him. Whistling at night calls bad spirits, you? No. Teasing, she lets out a low, mournful whistle, and instantly a deep, guttural growl tears through the room, like a predator waking in the walls. The candle's flame surges, then dies, plunging them into darkness. Chloe and nah, then freeze, hearts hammering as the rotting smell floods back, thick and suffocating, like a grave opened beneath them. Shadows writhe on the walls, forming shapes, hands, eyes, that vanish when Chloe blinks. What was that? Nathan chokes. Out, his voice barely a whisper. Chloe grabs the candlestick, its metal ice cold, the runes now glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. They fumble for earplugs, barricading themselves under blankets, but the air hums with menace. Chloe's mind races. The candlestick isn't just old, it's alive, and it's angry. Something bound to it is awake, and it knows her name, Dawn. Breaks, but Chloe finds no peace. She's tormented by one question. Is this a haunting she should fear, or will it fade like a bad dream? She spends hours online, scouring paranormal forums. Others describe smells of decay, growls from empty rooms, objects that feel wrong. The candlestick sits on her dresser, its runes now dull but menacing, daring her to touch it. Nathan's father won that show house, a grand mansion, and brought home its relics. Candlesticks, a cracked mirror, an ivory comb, now scattered across Chloe's apartment. Digging deeper, Chloe uncovers the mansion's past. Its first owner, a grieving heiress, disappeared in 1923 after her children died in a fire. Locals swore her screams still echoed in the halls. Then there's Nathan's stepmother, who ended her life a decade ago, her will cruelly cutting Nathan out, leaving everything to his siblings. Chloe wonders if her rage clings to the money Nathan inherited, Money he spent on Chloe's engagement ring. Her apartment feels safe, no overt malice, just these sharp bursts of terror. But the relics hum with energy, their shadows stretching longer each night. Chloe finds scratches on her arm, faint but real, with no memory of how they appeared. Is it the heiress trapped in her grief, the stepmother's spite, or something ancient woven into the relics, now stalking Chloe, waiting for her to break? She hasn't thrown them out yet, but she's not sure how much longer she can resist their pull. The dashboard lights of Sarah's beat-up Honda flickered, then died, plunging the car into silence on a desolate South Carolina highway. It was past midnight, the summer of 2003, and the humid air clung to everything. Sarah, a 20-year-old college OD sophomore, cursed under her breath, slamming the steering wheel. Beside her, Mia, her best friend and true crime podcast addict, scrolled through her flip phone searching for a signal. They'd been driving back from a music festival in Charleston, hyped on adrenaline and cheap energy drinks when the engine sputtered out. Now, two young women were stranded miles from anywhere, with only the crickets and the occasional hum of a distant car. Sarah popped the hood, but the tangle of wires meant nothing to her. "We're screwed," she muttered. Mia, ever the optimist, suggested walking to find help. "There's gotta be a gas station up the road. Besides, I've got pepper spray." Sarah hesitated, her gut twisting. Mia's podcast obsession had filled their road trip with stories of serial killers like Pee Wee Gaskins, a local legend who'd terrorized these roads decades ago. "Stop freaking me out," Sarah snapped. But she grabbed her backpack and they started down the highway, their sneakers crunching on gravel. The moon hung low, casting long shadows that seemed to shift just out of sight. Mia rambled about Gaskins, how he'd lure hitchhikers, his creepy smile, his body count. Sarah shushed her, but the words lingered. A low rumble broke the silence, a pickup truck approaching, its headlights slicing through the dark. Mia waved it down, but Sarah's stomach knotted. The truck slowed, and a man's voice called out soft and syrupy. "Y'all need a ride?" Something about it felt dangerously wrong. The pickup truck idled, its engine growling like a predator. Sarah squinted through the glare of the headlights, catching a glimpse of the driver. A short man with slicked back hair and a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Name's Donnie," he said, his voice dripping with a southern drawl that felt too practiced. Mia, oblivious to Sarah's unease, stepped closer, explaining their car trouble. "We just need a lift to a gas station," she said, her pepper spray tucked in her pocket. Sarah gripped her arm, whispering, "Something's off." But Mia shrugged her away, climbing into the truck's passenger seat. Reluctantly, Sarah followed, the door slamming shut like a trap. Inside, the cab smelled of stale cigarettes and something sharper, like bleach. Two young women now sat inches from a man who felt dangerously wrong. Donnie's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, lingering on Sarah too long. "Y'all picked a bad stretch to be walking," he said, chuckling. "Folks go missing out. Here." Mia, still chatty, mentioned her podcast about serial killers, name-dropping Pee Wee Gaskins. Donnie's grin twitched, and Sarah's heart sank. The truck veered onto a side road, away from the highway. "Shortcut," Donnie muttered, but the trees closed in, and the road turned to dirt. Sarah's hand crept to her backpack, where she kept a pocket knife. Mia finally sensed the shift, her voice faltering as she asked, "Where are we going?" Donnie's chuckle turned cold. "Somewhere quiet." The truck sped up, gravel pinging against the undercarriage. Sarah's eyes darted to the door. Locked. In the glove box, something glinted, a roll of duct tape. Panic surged. This wasn't just a creepy driver. This was a predator, and they were his prey. The truck lurched over the dirt road, its headlights barely piercing the dense woods. Sarah's pulse hammered as she clutched her pocket knife, her eyes locked on Donnie. Mia's hand fumbled for her. Pepper spray, her earlier bravado gone. "Let us out," Sarah demanded, her voice steady despite the fear. Donnie's grin widened, his hand sliding to a hunting knife on the dashboard. "Y'all ain't going nowhere," he said, his tone chillingly calm. This was it, the moment two young women realized they were trapped with a serial killer intent on abduction. Sarah acted fast, jamming her knife into the seatbelt lock and yanking Mia's arm. "Now!" she screamed. Mia sprayed the pepper spray, hitting Donnie's face. He roared, swerving the truck as his eyes streamed. Sarah kicked the door, the lock giving way. They tumbled out, hitting the dirt hard. The truck skidded to a stop, and Donnie's silhouette loomed, knife in hand. "Run!" Sarah shouted, pulling Mia into the trees. The woods were a maze of shadows, branches clawing at their skin as they fled, Donnie's footsteps crunching. Behind them, Mia tripped, her ankle twisting. Sarah hauled her up, her own lungs burning. They ducked behind a rotting log, holding their breath as Donnie's flashlight swept the dark. His voice slithered through the trees. "Can't hide forever." Sarah's hand brushed something in the dirt, a rusted keychain with the initials PG. Her blood ran cold. Pee Wee Gaskins. This wasn't just any killer. It was him, still hunting these roads. A twig snapped nearby, and Donnie's shadow loomed closer. Sarah gripped Mia's hand, whispering, "We're not dying tonight." They had one chance to outsmart a predator. Sarah and Mia crouched behind the log, their breaths shallow, as Donnie's flashlight beam grazed the trees. The keychain in Sarah's hand, engraved PG, burned like a brand. Two young women had escaped a serial killer's trap, but he was still out there hunting. Sarah's mind raced. They couldn't outrun him forever. She spotted a faint glow through the trees, a distant farmhouse. "There," she whispered, pulling Mia toward it. They sprinted, thorns tearing at their clothes, Donnie's curses echoing behind. They reached the farmhouse, pounding on the door. An elderly woman answered, her eyes widening as she ushered them inside. "He's coming," Mia gasped, and the woman bolted the door, grabbing a shotgun. Donnie's truck roared into the yard, but the woman stood firm, shouting, "I know who you are, Gaskins." A tense standoff followed, Donnie's silhouette retreating as police sirens wailed in the distance. The girls collapsed, safe but shaken, their brush with abduction a nightmare they'd never forget. Days later, Sarah and Mia sat in a diner, the keychain now evidence in a reopened Gaskins case. Mia's podcast had blown up, her episode on their encounter trending on X. But Sarah couldn't shake the unease. The police confirmed Donnie was a Gaskins copycat, obsessed with the killer's legacy. Yet, in her backpack, Sarah found a note she hadn't seen before. "You got lucky, I don't." No signature, just the initials PG. Her heart stopped. Was Gaskins really gone, or had they escaped a predator only to awaken something worse? Mia's phone pinged. A new X post. Blurry photo of a man on their highway, smiling. The caption read, "He's back." The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the cavernous lobby of the Pacific Bio Research Center, a government lab sprawling across a Portland industrial park. 9-year-old Lucas Bennett sat cross-legged on the reception desk, his comic book splayed open, the pages glowing under a desk lamp. His parents, both biologists, were deep in their labs upstairs, working late again. The building hummed with the quiet of after hours, its halls a maze of locked doors and high-tech equipment. Lucas was used to these long nights, but tonight, The air felt wrong. Too still, too cold, like the building was holding its breath. This happened about 20 years ago. I was 9 years old at the time. My parents are both biologists. The place where they worked at the time was a government building dedicated to biology research used in government projects turned towards the public. This being a massive old government building, it always had a security guard present day and night. Lucas glanced at the security guard, Mr. Randall, a lanky man with a warm smile who always had a joke ready. Initially, he seemed like the nicest person. He was really nice to me, and frankly, all the memories I have from him before this were generally really good. He would make me paper planes, which he was surprisingly good at, and throw them around with me. He would stay with me at the reception in the days that my parents had to work into the night. Lucas trusted him, and so did his parents, a mistake that would soon unravel. As the clock ticked past 10 p.m., Mr. Randall clapped his hands. "How about a tour, kid? Check the building with me." Lucas hesitated, the comic book heavy in his hands, but nodded. One night, my parents had to work even later than usual. I think it was around 10 p.m., and they were still at it. So this guy who was on the night shift decided to take me around the building with him to do his rounds. They started on the top floor, Randall's flashlight sweeping through dark offices, the beam catching dusty files and locked cabinets. Lucas trailed behind, the silence pressing in. Down they went, through the second floor's labs with humming machines. Then the first floor's admin rooms, sterile and empty. At the basement, the air grew colder, the halls narrower. We checked all the labs, but I noticed that his pace was accelerating, and he was starting to look and sound happier, excited even. Randall's grin widened as they entered the final lab, a cavernous room with printers and monitors. When we got to the last area, he turned all the lights on and we went inside. There were 3 separate offices on each side of the lab, and in the first one, he hurried towards the printer, opened it up, took out 2 pieces of paper, and made 2 quick paper planes. He tossed one to Lucas, saying, "Yours, kid. Let's play." Lucas ran to grab it, but the light snapped off, plunging the room into darkness. Suddenly, the lights went off. When I turned around to check what was happening, I saw him getting out of the lab, turning the lights off, and locking the door. Lucas pounded the glass, screaming, "Open it!" I ran to the door, punched it, and kicked it while screaming for him to open it. Panic took over me because of how scared I was of being in the dark at that time. Through the glass, he vanished down the hall, lights winking out behind him. I could see him scurrying away in the corridors, turning the lights off as he went and disappearing after turning a corner. Lucas sank to the floor, heart racing, the darkness alive with shifting shadows. Was that movement real, or his fear playing tricks? The lab's hum turned sinister like a heartbeat in the walls. He clutched his comic, whispering, "Mom, Dad, find me." Hours crawled by, the cold seeping into his bones until a distant light flickered. My parents finished work eventually, and when they did, they packed up their things and made their way to the lobby to pick me up and go home. When they got there, the security guard was at the reception, but I was nowhere to be found. His mom, Claire, grabbed Randall's collar, shouting, "Where's my son?" They panicked, of course, must have shouted 100 times different cuss words at the guy. When they first asked the guy where the heck I was and what he had done with me, he simply said that he had gone to do the rounds with me and I must have gotten lost somewhere. His dad, Nathan, shoved past, searching every floor, Claire trailing, her voice breaking. It was only when I saw a light flare at the end of the corridors leading to the lab that I was in that I got the courage to stand up, rushed towards the door, and started punching it as hard as I could. Nathan's flashlight found Lucas, his small fists bloody against the glass. They finally found me there and made the guard unlock the door to get me out. Randall fumbled the keys, his smile gone, as Claire pulled Lucas into her arms. I don't really remember sleeping that night, and if I did, it must have been out of exhaustion. But I know that I made my mom stay in the bedroom with me the entire night. At home, Lucas clung to Claire, the lab's darkness etched in his mind. My parents made a complaint against the guard, and when they did, when the guy started being investigated, he was fired and arrested. Not because of locking me away where he probably hoped that no one could find me, but because he had been partnering up with other criminals to steal computers and equipment from the building, to sell in some shady market, along with the information in the hard drives. The truth was worse. Randall's theft ring targeted kids too, selling them to traffickers. Luckily, he never had the chance to do that because my parents never gave up. Lucas was safe, but the ordeal left scars. I really hope that he never got to do that again with any other kid. But the lab wasn't done with Lucas. Weeks later, he found a paper plane on his bed, identical to Randall's, with "Stay Out" scrawled in black ink. His parents swore they didn't place. It and the security cameras showed no intruders. Nightmares plagued him. Dark labs, shadows with Randall's grin whispering his name. At school, Lucas heard rumors. The Bio-Research Center was built over an old asylum, its patients' anguish seeping into the walls. One night, his bedroom light flickered, and the comic book he'd left in the lab appeared on his desk, pages torn, inked with symbols that pulsed red. Claire and Nathan noticed Lucas's fear, but their own sleep was haunted by whispers from the lab's halls, calling their son. The family installed locks, but the paper planes kept coming, each with a "Do message, you're mine, I'm inside." Greg, a family friend and ex-cop, investigated, uncovering a chilling lead. Randall's theft ring was a front for a cult worshipping the Keeper, a lab-bound entity feeding on trapped souls. Lucas's nightmares grew vivid. A figure in Randall's uniform, eyes hollow, leading him to a glowing door in the lab. One night the house shook and Lucas woke to find his parents gone. The comic book opened to a new page, a sketch of him, trapped in the lab, with "Forever" inked below. The door creaked and a paper plane sailed in, landing at his feet, whispering, "Welcome back." Under the neon glow of a Miami night, Elena, a 32-year-old travel blogger, steps off a plane, her heart light with the promise of family time. She's visiting her older brother, Marcus, who's settled into a modest rental house in a lively neighborhood where salsa music spills from open windows. The house is a quirky two-story with faded coral paint, its porch cluttered with potted palms and string lights. Inside, it's cozy but worn, creaky floors, mismatched furniture, and a faint smell of ocean salt. Marcus lives with his girlfriend, Sophia, and her young daughter, Lila, who greet Elena with warm hugs. It's late, around 11 p.m., and Elena's in the kitchen, realizing she forgot to wash a glass left on the table. The glass holds a splash of tamarind soda, a local favorite she rarely finds abroad. She reaches for it, but a chill crawls up her spine, like eyes boring into her from the dark. She turns, expecting Sophia, Lila, or Marcus, but feels a presence at the kitchen door. The hallway beyond is pitch black, the kind of dark that swallows sound. Her pulse quickens. Everyone's upstairs, doors closed, yet the air hums with something alive. Elena sets the glass down, her fingers trembling, and glances at the glass sliding doors separating the living room from the hall. For weeks she sensed a shadow there, a flicker in her peripheral vision that vanishes when she looks. Tonight, though, the feeling is stronger. as if whatever's been watching has finally decided to step closer. She doesn't know it yet, but this house holds a secret, one that's about to reveal itself in the worst way. Elena's breath catches as she stares into the hallway's void. Then in a flash, she sees her, a woman in the middle of the hall, her long, straight hair falling to one side as she bends at the waist, peering into the kitchen. Her face is pale, almost translucent, with eyes like empty wells locked on Elena. The image is so vivid it burns into her mind, a mix of shock and dread, but it's gone in seconds. Elena stumbles back, the glass clinking against the table. Her heart pounds. She's alone, yet not alone. The woman's posture wasn't curious, it was predatory, like a hunter sizing up prey. Elena bolts to Marcus's room, her knocks frantic despite the late hour. She bursts in, asking, "Have you ever seen something here? I just saw a woman in the hall." Marcus sits up, his face draining of color. He whispers, "She has long dark hair, bent to one side, right? I saw her a week ago." Sophia stirs, groggy, but Marcus's voice trembles as he describes the same figure lurking outside his door, her gaze chillingly deliberate. Elena's skin prickles. They've seen the same impossible thing. The house groans, as if acknowledging their fear, and Elena swears she hears a faint scrape from downstairs, like footsteps on the hardwood. Marcus grabs a flashlight, but neither dares to check. Whatever that woman is, she's not a trick of the light. She's here and she's watching them. Sleep is impossible now. Elena and Marcus huddle in his room, the flashlight's beam jittering across the walls. Elena admits she's felt a presence since arriving. Something by the glass doors between the living room and hall. A shadow that flickers in her peripheral vision, but vanishes when she looks. She'd brushed it off as jet lag, but now it feels like a warning ignored. Marcus suggests tea to calm their nerves, and Elena heads to the kitchen, her every step heavy with dread. The house feels alive, its creaks and sighs too deliberate. As she fills the kettle, the air shifts, and there she is again, not as vivid but unmistakable. A faint outline of the woman by the glass doors, her head tilted unnaturally. Elena freezes, the kettle trembling in her hands, but the figure fades like mist. She rushes back to Marcus, her voice shaking. She's still here. Sophia, skeptical, insists it's just stress, but Marcus's eyes betray his fear. He's seen too much to doubt. They light candles, not for warmth but for protection, and sit in silence listening for sounds that don't belong. Elena's mind races. How long has this woman been here watching them? And why now? Why her? The glass doors rattle softly, unprompted, and Elena's sure of one thing. This isn't a ghost story, it's a hunt and they're the prey. The candles flicker, casting long shadows that dance across Marcus's room. Elena, voice trembling, politely asks the presence to leave, saying it's scaring them. Marcus lights another candle and murmurs a prayer, his hands unsteady. Sophia, who doesn't believe in ghosts, admits she can't explain how they both saw the same figure with identical details. Elena's heart sinks. They're not imagining this. Marcus reveals they've rented the house for 4 years, but these disturbances only started recently. Small noises escalating to this. He recalls a neighbor's story. The house once belonged to a woman who vanished decades ago, leaving behind whispers of tragedy. Elena wonders if their arrival stirred something dormant, or if the house itself is a trap. They stay awake till dawn, the candles burning low, but the air remains heavy, as if the woman's gaze lingers just out of sight. By morning, Elena finds scratches on the glass doors, thin, deliberate lines forming a symbol she doesn't recognize. She researches the house's past, uncovering a chilling detail. The missing woman's diary was found in the attic, its final entry reading, "They'll never leave." Who was she? What does she want? And why does Elena feel like the answer is tied to her, pulling her deeper into the house's dark heart? The for sale sign creaked in the wind outside the old Carter house, its paint peeling like a fading memory. Lucas Carter, 32, stood on the porch of his childhood home in suburban Ohio, the key heavy in his hand. It was April 2025, and he'd come back to sell the place after his mother's sudden death. The house hadn't been touched in years, its windows dark, its lawn overgrown. Lucas, now a graphic designer in Chicago, hadn't set foot here since he was 18, fleeing family drama and a town that felt too small. But something about the house, its silence, its weight, made his skin crawl. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and nostalgia. Lucas flicked on a light, revealing faded wallpaper and furniture frozen in time. His sister, Emily, was due tomorrow to help sort through their mom's things, but tonight, he was alone. He wandered through the living room, memories flickering. Christmas, mornings, arguments, his mom's laughter. Then he reached the kitchen and his stomach twisted. The room felt strange, wrong, like it didn't belong. The linoleum was too clean, the air too cold, and the clock on the wall was stuck at 3:17. Lucas shivered, blaming jet lag, but his eyes caught something odd. A faint handprint on the fridge, too small to be his. He brushed it off, heading upstairs to his old bedroom. The closet still held his teenage junk, comics, a broken skateboard. But as he turned to leave, a soft click echoed from downstairs, like a door unlatching. Lucas froze. "Hello?" No answer. His phone buzzed, an X notification about a local urban legend. The Carter house whispered to be haunted. He scoffed, but the silence grew heavier, and the kitchen's chill seemed to creep up the stairs. Something was watching him, and this house wasn't ready to let go. Lucas gripped his phone, the X post about the haunted Carter house lingering in his mind. The click from downstairs echoed in his ears, too deliberate to be the house settling. He crept to the staircase, his flashlight beam slicing through the dark. The kitchen loomed below, its clean linoleum glowing faintly under the moonlight. The air grew colder with each step, and the strange feeling intensified like the room was holding its breath. At the threshold, Lucas stopped. The handprint on the fridge was gone, but the clock still read 3:17, its second hand frozen. He opened a cabinet, half expecting answers, but found only dusty mugs. Then, a faint scrape, like plastic on wood, came from the counter. Lucas spun, his beam landing on a Rubik's Cube, its colors faded but intact, sitting dead center. His heart skipped. He'd lost that cube when he was 12 after his dad left. It had vanished from his room, never to be found, until now. Mysteriously reappearing after 20 years, it felt like a taunt. Lucas reached for it, but the cube slid, an inch, untouched as if pulled by an invisible hand. His breath hitched. The room's chill deepened and a whisper, soft, childlike, slipped through the air. "Solve it." Lucas backed away, his flashlight flickering. The kitchen's walls seemed to pulse, the linoleum rippling like water. He grabbed the cube, its surface ice cold, and ran upstairs, slamming his bedroom door. His phone buzzed again, an X thread, claiming the house was tied to a tragedy, a child's death hushed up decades ago. Lucas's hands shook as he stared at the cube. Its stickers were peeling, revealing scratches underneath. Initials LC, his initials. This wasn't just a toy. It was a message, and the haunted house was speaking. Lucas clutched the Rubik's Cube, its scratched initials, LC, burning, into his palm. The childhood home felt alive, its haunted presence pressing against him. He sat on his old bed, the kitchen's chill seeping through the floorboards. The whisper, "Solve it," echoed in his mind, and the cube's stickers seemed to glow faintly, urging him to twist. Against his better judgment, he did, each click unnaturally loud in the silent house. The strange air thickened, and the room dimmed, as if the light was being sucked away. A shadow flickered in the corner, a small figure no taller than a child, its eyes hollow. Lucas dropped the cube, scrambling back. "Who's there?" The figure didn't move, but the cube spun, on the floor, solving itself, colors aligning perfectly. The whisper returned, sharper. "You forgot me." The air crackled and the figure stepped forward, revealing a face, pale, familiar, like a younger Lucas. His breath caught. The X thread had mentioned a child's death, but no details. Was this him? Or something else tied to the kitchen's secrets? The figure pointed downstairs. Lucas's legs moved on their own, drawn to the kitchen. The linoleum pulsed, and the fridge door swung open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a photo. Lucas at 10, holding the Rubik's Cube next to his dad who'd left that year. Scrawled on the back, "Don't let it take him." The figure's voice hissed. He knew. Lucas's mind reeled. His dad had warned about something in the house, something tied to the haunted history. A family curse, a deal gone wrong. The cube glowed, projecting a memory. His dad burying something under the kitchen floor, whispering, "Stay away." The figure lunged, its touch ice cold, and Lucas screamed, the cube shattering into pieces. The Rubik's Cube's pieces scattered across the kitchen floor, the ghostly figure gone. Lucas gasped, his heart pounding in the haunted silence of his childhood home. The photo trembled in his hand, his dad's warning, "Don't let it take him," searing into his mind. The strange linoleum was still, but the air hummed with menace. Lucas grabbed the photo and journaled his thoughts, piecing together the truth. His dad had known about a curse tied to the house, something buried under the kitchen, linked to a child's death decades ago. The Rubik's Cube, a gift from his dad, was a tether keeping the entity at bay, until Lucas left, letting it awaken. Emily arrived the next morning, her skepticism clashing with Lucas's fear. "You're freaking out over a toy?" she scoffed, but her face paled when she saw the photo. They dug under the kitchen floor, finding a rusted box with a child's drawings, sketches of the cube, labeled "The Key." An X post Lucas found later confirmed it. The house was built on land tied to a 1950s cult, their rituals binding a spirit to objects like the cube. Lucas and Emily burned the drawings, hoping to break the curse, and sold the house at a loss. But the haunted vibe lingered in Lucas's dreams, the whisper returning, "I'm not done." Weeks later in Chicago, Lucas unpacked his boxes. Tucked among his books was the Rubik's Cube, reassembled, its colors pristine. His blood ran cold. An X notification pinged. A new owner of the Carter house posted a video. Flickering lights, a child's laughter in the kitchen. The caption read, "Who's LC?" Lucas's initials. The curse wasn't broken, it had followed him. He grabbed his keys, knowing he'd face the haunted entity again or lose himself to it. The late summer heat clung to the campus of Westview Community College, its sprawling quad buzzing with students heading to evening classes. In the crowded student union, 19-year-old Noah Carter leaned against a table, scrolling through his phone, the hum of chatter and clinking trays filling the air. His cousin Liam was stuck in a pre-calculus class for another hour, leaving Noah to kill time after their biology lecture. The cafeteria's fluorescent lights flickered, casting long shadows, and Noah felt a prickle on his neck, like someone was watching. He glanced up but saw only students, none meeting his gaze. For a bit of background, me, my cousin, and my brother took classes over the summer at a local college. Me and my cousin, we took a biology class while my brother took a pre-calculus class. My brother's class ends later than our class, giving us about a 2-hour window where we would sit around the college to wait for him. During the encounter, we were waiting for him in the cafeteria, passing the time. Noah pocketed his phone, grabbing a soda, when a faint whir caught his ear. A wheelchair rolling across the tiled floor. After a while, this woman in a wheelchair shows up in front of some vending machines a couple of feet in front of us. She stopped, her back to them, her dark hair tangled, her hands gripping the chair's wheels. She sat in front of that vending machine for a good 10 to 15 minutes and started to play loud music. It startled me, and so I looked up at her. The music was jarring, a distorted pop song echoing in the quiet corner. She then looked at us and asked, "Do any of you boys have 10 cents that I can use for the vending machine?" Noah, always quick to help, fished out a $5 bill. I had 2 $5 bills in my pocket in case I needed some food, so I gave her a 5, and I got handed back my change. The woman turned, her face pale, her smile thin and unsettling. Then she asks for another favor. This time it was to bring her to a parking lot near the football stadium, where her ride would be waiting. She said that she had never been there and needed some guidance. Noah shrugged, starting toward her chair, but she raised a hand. I figured that there was no harm in helping her, so I took the handles, but she immediately stopped me and asked for my cousin instead. Liam, just back from grabbing a snack, looked puzzled but agreed. I was being pretty oblivious during this entire encounter, so I didn't even realize how strange that request was. She kept looking back at me and giving an uncanny smile, like it was meant to be a friendly smile, but it came off more like she had some sort of malicious intent. Noah trailed behind, the woman's gaze locking onto him, her eyes glinting like polished glass. They pushed through the campus, the stadium's lights looming in the distance. The parking lot was nearly empty, the air thick with the scent of asphalt and grass. After we arrived, she looks at us and asks, "Could you stay with me until my ride comes?" Still giving us a smile. Noah hesitated but nodded. She recalls, "Once I had to go back and forth from here in the other parking lot. It was so annoying," contradicting her earlier claim of never being here. We shuffled at this because we found this extremely unsettling. Liam's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the lot. She tells me about how she loves to smash glass bottles to tame her anger. Noah's stomach twisted. Her voice was too calm, her words too precise. Later I realized how it seemed like she was trying hard to be friendly, how anxious she seemed, and how many of the things that she said just didn't match up and seemed off. A sedan circled the lot, its headlights sweeping over them. At some points while we were waiting, this one car would keep circling the parking lot. We asked if it was her ride, but she told us that her ride was a van. Noah's brother, Tyler, pulled up in their car, honking. Our ride came, so we just apologized and left. The woman's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing as they drove away. We've told many other people about this story, and they all agree that she was acting pretty strange. The main thing that fueled me seeing this as odd was the fact that According to my cousin and his sibling, there was an email sent out warning people about a potential human trafficking scheme caught on campus. The email about the potential human trafficking ring had described someone who looked eerily similar to that woman being the very front man of that operation. Noah's heart raced as Liam read the email aloud, describing a woman in a wheelchair, charming but dangerous. Back at their dorm, Noah couldn't shake the woman's stare. That night, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You were kind. Stay kind." He deleted it, but sleep eluded him. His dreams filled with her smile, now twisted, her wheelchair rolling through endless lots. The next day, campus forums lit up with posts about missing students. Last seen near the stadium. Liam found a flyer in the cafeteria, its edges worn, showing the woman's face labeled "Missing Jane Doe." But the photo was old, faded from decades ago. A janitor, Mr. Ellis, whispered to Noah about a campus legend. Spectral woman in a wheelchair luring students to vanish. Her smile a trap. Noah laughed it off, but his laptop glitched, displaying the same flyer, the woman's eyes now glowing red. The texts kept coming, each more cryptic. "You can't leave. I'm waiting." Noah and Liam noticed shadows in the cafeteria, always at the vending machines, flickering when they looked away. One night, Noah's car wouldn't start, its dashboard flashing "Stay." They checked the lot, finding wheelchair tracks in the dirt, leading nowhere. A professor, Dr. Lang, shared a chilling tale. The college was built over a 1960s hospital, its basement a morgue where a nurse, paralyzed and vengeful, died after being abandoned. Her spirit, the Wheeler, haunted the campus, seeking souls to bind. Noah's dreams grew vivid. The woman, now eyeless, pushed him into a glowing void, her voice hissing, "Mine." One evening, the cafeteria lights flickered, and the vending machines hummed, playing that distorted song. Noah and Liam froze as the woman appeared, her chair rolling silently, her smile wide. "You didn't stay," she whispered, her voice echoing in their skulls. Tyler's car screeched into the lot, but as they ran, the lot stretched, the stadium receding. The woman's chair spun, her form dissolving into shadow, her laughter swallowing the air. They woke in their dorm, unharmed, but Tyler was gone. His phone showing one text, "She took me." The flyer was pinned to their door, now blank, but Noah knew. She was still out there, watching, waiting for them to return. The sun sets over Mexico City, painting the sky in hues of amber and blood as Camilla, a 27-year-old graphic artist, unpacks her life into a cavernous 6-bedroom house in a historic neighborhood. The house, a colonial relic with crumbling stucco and wrought iron gates, buzzes with the energy of her new roommates. Artists, musicians, dreamers like her, drawn to its cheap rent and eerie charm. Last May, Camilla moved into this old house, shared among friends and colleagues for years, a revolving door of tenants. The floors creak under faded rugs, and the walls are adorned with mismatched art. But there's a strange pull to the place, like it's holding its breath. Stories of creepy happenings float among the group, most vague, like rattling windows, but always tied to the back patio. Camilla laughs them off, her skepticism a shield against the house's quirks. Her roommate, Diego, a painter, warns her about odd vibes, but she's too busy settling in to care. One night, exploring the sprawling backyard, she finds the patio, a tiled oasis ringed by overgrown vines, its wrought iron table glinting under moonlight. The air feels heavier there, as if someone's watching from the shadows. Camilla shakes. "Get off." But as she turns back to the house, a cold breeze carries a whisper, her name spoken by no one. She freezes, heart racing, unaware that this house has plans for her, and they're about to unfold under the cover of night. It's a sultry Friday night, the kind where the air hums with possibility. Camila, Diego, and his girlfriend Valeria lounge at the patio table sipping mezcal under a canopy of stars. They're chatting, the patio light casting a warm glow, when suddenly it flicks off, and the sliding glass door slams shut with a force that rattles the frame. Glasses clink as everyone jumps. Diego mutters, "That was rude." Assuming their upstairs roommates, Ana and Javier, are annoyed by the noise. Camila stands, her chair scraping, and flips the light back on, heart thudding. She slides the door, closed, brushing it off as a prank. But the mood shifts. Valeria's eyes dart to the dark windows and Diego's laugh sounds forced. The next afternoon, Camila learns Ana and Javier left at 7:30 p.m. for a baseball game. They weren't home when the light went out. Confusion settles in like fog. Later, Diego and friends are back at the patio, beers in hand, when a sharp whistle cuts through their chatter, not from anyone, but from an empty chair at the table. Everyone freezes, eyes locked on the vacant seat. The sound wasn't human. It was too hollow, too deliberate. Camilla's skin crawls as she recalls that whisper in the yard. The house isn't just old. It's awake and it's playing with them, testing how far it can push before they break. The whistle lingers in Camilla's mind, a splinter she can't pull out. On Monday, she runs into Beto, a former housemate, and spills the weekend's events. He smirks. "Wait till you see the girl." It's not the first time she's heard this. Their company manager, Yolo, once mentioned spotting a little girl in the house. Impossible since no one here has kids. Camilla's skepticism wavers. The house feels like a puzzle with missing pieces. Then there are other incidents. Straw flung from an upstairs window at friends on the patio, though no one was home. Julian saw a shadow move in Diego's room through the window when Diego was out. Ana heard voices whispering outside her door, but the hall was empty. Camilla starts noticing her own oddities. Her sketchbook pages tear overnight, replaced with childish scribbles of eyes. The patio table shifts, an inch daily, as if pushed by unseen hands. One night, alone in her room, she hears a giggle, high-pitched, fleeting, from under her bed. She checks, flashlight shaking, finding only dust, but her shoes are lined up neatly, toes pointing to the patio. Diego suggests moving out, but Camilla's curiosity burns brighter than her fear. She needs answers. Who is this girl? And why? Does the house seem to want her to find out? Camilla can't sleep, her mind tangled in the house's mysteries. These incidents, lights, whistles, shadows, seem minor, but they don't feel like pranks anymore. Could her roommates be messing with her? Ana's too practical, Javier too shy, and Diego's as spooked as she is. Her curiosity outweighs her doubt. She wants to know if this little girl or something else haunts the house. She digs online, finding old city records. The house was a children's home in the 1940s, abandoned after a fire claimed a young girl named Clara. Her body never found. Locals claimed her laughter echoed in the ruins. Camilla's breath catches. Clara fits the stories, the giggles, the scribbles. But why now? She visits the patio at midnight, heart pounding, and whispers, "Clara, are you here?" The vines rustle, though there's no wind, and a child's voice hums a lullaby, cut short by a sharp crack, like glass breaking inside. Camilla runs in, finding a mirror shattered, its shards forming Clara's name. Is Clara trapped, seeking help? Or is something darker using her image, luring Camilla into a trap? She hasn't told her roommates yet, but the house feels alive, its walls watching, waiting for her next move. The power cut hit Fort Benning at midnight, plunging the Georgia base into darkness. Pete Jake Riley, a 22-year-old rookie, gripped his flashlight, his boots echoing in the empty Army barracks. It was April 2025 and Jake was stuck on night duty, his first solo patrol since basic training. The outage wasn't unusual, old wiring, the sergeant said, but the silence was. No hum of Babel Black, a notorious serial killer, was born in the U.S. state of Louisiana. His crimes were committed in the early 1970s in the town of Jonesboro, where he was known to the locals as Pee-wee. He was arrested in 1975 and sentenced to death the following year. In 1982, the Supreme Court of South Carolina overturned his conviction, and he was tried again, receiving the death penalty a second time. He was executed in 1991. Just Jake, alone in a maze of concrete halls with a radio that hissed static. He swept his beam across the mess hall, its tables ghostly in the gloom. Jake wasn't superstitious, but the base had rumors, spread on X. Soldiers seeing shadows, hearing strange noises in the old barracks. He'd laughed it off, blaming boredom. Then a low thump echoed from the east wing like a door slamming. Jake froze, his breath catching. "Control, you copy?" Static. Another thump closer, followed by a faint scrape, metal on concrete. His training kicked in, check the source, report back. But his gut screamed to run. Jake moved toward the sound, the air growing colder, heavier. The feeling of being watched prickled his neck, like eyes boring into him from the dark. His flashlight flickered, catching a glint on the floor. A dog. Tag half buried in dust, inscribed Sergeant T. Hayes, 1968. Jake's pulse raced. No one had used this wing in decades. The thumps stopped, replaced by a whisper, barely audible. "Stay out." Jake's hand tightened on his radio. This wasn't just a blackout. Jake's flashlight flickered as he clutched the dog tag, its cold metal biting his palm. The Army barracks seemed to close in, the strange noises, now a rhythmic tapping, echoing from the East Wing's locked storage room. His radio crackled, spitting garbled words. "Leave. Now." Jake's heart pounded. He was alone on night duty, but the feeling of being watched grew sharper, like a presence lurking just beyond his beam. He tried the storage door, rusted, bolted shut. The tapping stopped, replaced by a low moan, human but wrong, seeping through the walls. He backed away, sweeping his light down the hall. Shadows danced, too sharp, too deliberate. Jake's training screamed, "Clear the area," but his instincts begged him to bolt. Then his beam caught something. A faded photo taped to the wall showing a squad from 68. One soldier circled in red, Sergeant Hayes. Below it, scrawled in chalk. He never left. Jake Coy's stomach dropped. X posts had mentioned a cover-up. Soldiers dying in these barracks, their records erased. Was Hayes one of them? The moan grew louder, now a voice. "You shouldn't be here." Jake spun, his light catching a figure at the hall's end. Tall, uniformed, but blurred, like a photo out of focus. It vanished when he blinked, but the tapping resumed, faster, angrier. The dog tag burned in his hand and his radio screamed static, then a clear word. "Run." Jake's courage cracked. He sprinted toward the exit, but the strange noises followed, and the feeling of being watched became a weight, dragging him back. Jake's boots pounded the Army barracks floor, the exit just yards away. The strange noises, now boots marching, in step, chased him, sinking with his heartbeat. The feeling of being watched was unbearable, like hands gripping his shoulders. He clutched Sergeant Hayes's dog tag, its edges cutting his skin. The night duty had become a nightmare. His flashlight died, plunging the hall into darkness, but a faint glow pulsed from the storage room, leaking under the bolted door. Against every instinct, Jake turned back, drawn to the light. The door was ajar now, impossible. Inside, the glow came from a cracked mirror reflecting a figure. Sergeant Hayes, his face gaunt, eyes hollow, uniform stained with blood. "You found me," he rasped, his voice the strange noises Jake had heard all night. The mirror showed flashes. Hayes in 68, shot during a secret experiment, his death buried by the brass. The barracks held his rage, trapping anyone who stayed too long. Jake's radio screamed, "Get out!" Hayes lunged, his touch freezing, and the mirror shattered, glass slicing Jake's arm. Jake stumbled outside, the glow fading, the marching silent. He reported the outage, omitting Hayes. Days later, an ex-post surfaced, a leaked memo about 68. Experiments gone wrong, soldiers like Hayes erased. Jake kept the dog tag, its weight a reminder. But at night, on base, he heard strange noises again. Whispers, boots, his name. Hayes wasn't gone. The barracks were watching, and Jake's next night duty loomed. He'd face it, or become another secret. The campfire's embers glowed outside a rustic cabin nestled deep in Oregon's Cascade Mountains, casting flickering shadows on the pine walls. 35-year-old Evan Harper sat on the porch, sharpening his hiking knife, the night air sharp, with the scent of sap and earth. His wife Jenna and their 3 kids were inside, laughing over a board game, their voices a warm anchor. Evan, a seasoned hiker, craved the solitude of the wilderness, and tomorrow he'd tackle a 10-mile solo trek through the dense forest. But tonight, a strange unease settled in his chest, like the woods were whispering secrets he couldn't hear. 2 or 3 times a year, we vacation in a cabin in the wilderness. Me, my wife, and our 3 young children and 2 dogs. I'm no stranger to the wild, and have made a lot of multiple-day and week solo trips in national parks. Evan rose at dawn, his boots crunching on frost as he set out, the trail winding through towering firs. The forest was alive, birds chirping, leaves rustling, but its pulse felt off, too quiet in places. 2 hours in, at the trail's farthest point, a sound stopped him cold. Yesterday, too, I went for a 10-mile solo hike, and at the farthest point after 2 hours, I heard my children arguing, playing, and crying, laughing, and calling me from the forest. Voices echoed, his kids' voices shouting, "Dad!" amid giggles and sobs. His instincts screamed to crash through the brush, but logic hit hard. I was totally alone, and my first instinct was to run through the thick brush and trees where the sound was coming from. But then I realized that there's no way that it could be my kids. Evan froze, heart pounding. I decided to walk back to the cabin in the end. The voices grew louder, now mingled with a low hum, like static beneath the words. He gripped his knife, scanning the trees, but saw only shadows. The trail back felt longer, the forest denser, as if it was closing in. A child's laugh rang out too close, but when he spun, nothing was there. His phone, useless without signal, vibrated in his pocket, displaying Jenna despite no bars. The call dropped when he answered, leaving only silence. Back at the cabin, relief flooded him as Jenna greeted him, the kids tumbling out to hug him. The whole family was there, and they told me that they had never left. But Evan's unease lingered. I know how my children sound, and I swear that it was them. Later, I realized the combination of all the sounds, laughing, crying, playing, etc., made no sense. That night, he found a child's drawing under his pillow, a crude sketch of him in the woods, surrounded by faceless figures labeled Daddy. Jenna swore the kids didn't draw it. Locals later spoke of the Woods Choir, a spectral lure mimicking loved ones to trap wanderers. Evan's dreams turned dark, children's voices calling, leading him to a glowing clearing where shadows waited. One night the cabin's lights died, and the voices returned, now inside, whispering, "Stay with us." Jenna and the kids were asleep unharmed, but Evan knew. The forest had marked him and it was calling him back. A crisp spring breeze weaves through the towering pines of Acadia National Park, where the ocean's roar meets rugged cliffs in a symphony of wild beauty. Tessa, a 30-year-old park ranger, and her husband, Lucas, a photographer, have escaped. Here for a week of solitude, craving a break from their hectic lives in Boston. They've rented a small cabin near the historic town, their dog, Coda, bounding happily at their side. The cabin, a weathered wooden haven tucked off a quiet trail, feels like a perfect retreat, cozy, isolated, with a stone fireplace that crackles warmly each night. For 2 days, Tessa walks Coda down a private side road near the cabin, passing new houses without issue. She loves the routine, Coda's tail wagging as they explore, the path lined with wildflowers and the distant hum of suburban life. Lucas joins her sometimes, his camera capturing the park's raw magic. But there's a spot, a shadowed bend where the road skirts thick woods, that makes Tessa pause. It's subtle, a faint tightening in her chest, like the air itself is watching. She laughs it off, blaming fatigue, but Coda's ears twitch there, his gaze fixed on the trees. Tessa doesn't know it yet, but something in those woods has noticed them, and it's waiting to show itself in a way they'll never forget. On the third morning, Tessa sets out with Coda, the side road bathed in golden light. But as they near that shadowed bend, a strange unease grips her, heavy and unplaceable, urging her to turn back. Her skin prickles, the forest too quiet, no birds, no rustle, just a suffocating stillness. Coda whines in a way she's never heard, his eyes fixed on the woods, yipping nervously. Tessa's heart races. She trusts Coda's instincts more than her own. She books it back to the cabin, her breath ragged. Inside, Lucas is brewing coffee, his face tightening when he sees her pale expression. She tells him what happened, and he gets a look, haunted, hesitant. He confesses that last night, walking Coda near a barn on the property, he took a footpath by the trees and found something. Animal skulls, 2 empty liquor bottles, candles, and odd trinkets arranged deliberately on a wooden table like an altar. The sight chilled him, a wrongness that clung to the air. Tessa shivers, picturing it, syllables of bone and wax, a ritual unfinished. She asks why he didn't tell her sooner. Lucas admits he didn't want to scare her, but now he's not so sure it's harmless. The woods beyond their cabin feel alive, their shadows stretching closer, as if whatever built that altar is calling them back to see what it's hiding. Tessa can't shake the image of that altar, its grotesque symmetry burned into her mind. Lucas, a former Marine who's seen combat, doesn't scare easily, but this rattled him badly. He describes the table again. Deer skulls, their eye sockets blackened, bottles etched with strange symbols, candles half melted, their wax pooling, like blood. Near the barn, both felt a creeping dread, even Coda, who paced nervously. Tessa insists they investigate, her curiosity outweighing her fear. They hiked to the barn at dusk, Coda leashed tightly, his fur bristling. The footpath narrows, the trees closing in, their branches clawing at the sky. There it is, the altar, unchanged, but now adorned with fresh offerings. A rabbit's foot, feathers tied with red thread, a photo of a child, its face scratched, out. Tessa's stomach lurches. This wasn't here yesterday. Lucas whispers, "We need to go." But Tessa notices something. The ground around the table is scorched, forming a circle as if burned from below. Coda growls, low and guttural, pulling back. A twig snaps behind them, sharp in the silence, but no one's there, or so they think. They hurry away, the barn's shadow looming, their unease now a shared terror. Back at the cabin, Tessa finds scratches on her camera bag, delicate, intentional, like a warning. The altar isn't abandoned. It's active, and whoever or whatever tends it knows they've seen it. That night, a full moon bathes Acadia in silver light, and Tessa realizes it aligns with their discovery. She can't sleep, her mind racing with questions. Was the altar a ritual setup, maybe for a cult as they suspected? Lucas, usually the skeptic, agrees it felt too deliberate, too wrong. They scour online forums, finding whispers of Acadia's darker side, tales of vanishings near the park, hikers finding strange symbols carved into trees. One post chills Tessa, a ranger's account of a circle in the woods where nothing grows, linked to disappearances decades ago. Could their altar be part of that? Tessa recalls the scorched ground, the scratched photo, and shudders. She checks Coda, curled by the fire, but his eyes are fixed on the window, hackles raised. A low hum, like chanting, drifts from the woods, faint but unmistakable, then stops. Tessa grabs Lucas's arm, her voice barely a whisper. "Did you hear that?" He nods, face pale. They lock the doors, but the cabin feels exposed. It's too thin against whatever lurks outside. By morning, they pack up and leave, eager to escape the park's grip. Driving away, Tessa glances back, half expecting a figure in the trees. She sees nothing, but the hum lingers in her ears, a promise that the altar's keepers are still there, watching, waiting for someone new to stumble into their circle. And there you have it, 14 haunting tales that have taken us from eerie beaches to cursed forests, from shadowy homes to dangerous streets. Each story a glimpse into the unknown that lingers long after the telling. But don't turn off the lights, just yet, because this is only the beginning. The darkness holds more secrets, more chills, and more terrors waiting to be uncovered. What happens when a mother's love faces a vengeful spirit, or when a quiet night turns into a desperate fight for survival against a relentless pursuer? The next chapter of our journey promises even darker, more gripping stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat, questioning what lurks in the shadows of your own life. So, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell, and join me next time as we dive deeper into the abyss where the scariest tales are yet to come. Until then, stay safe and keep looking over your shoulder. The unknown is closer than you think, and I'll be waiting to guide you through it. See you in the darkness.